Welcome to the Standard Deviations podcast, presented by Orion Advisor Solutions and hosted by Dr. Daniel Crosby, Orion's Chief Behavioral Officer and New York Times best-selling author. Each week, Dr. Crosby interviews a fascinating new guest on a range of compelling topics, from literature to psychology to financial wellness. To learn more about Dr. Crosby's behavioral finance work at Orion, visit www.orion.com.
Hello and welcome to the Standard Deviations podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Daniel Crosby, and today I'm joined by Christopher Norton of Potomac. One of my favorite stories in the industry is Potomac, an asset management firm that is nearly 4 decades old, but came to my awareness, and I think the broader awareness of the industry in just the last maybe 5 to 7 years, owing largely to the gifts and talents of the man you are about to listen to. Christopher, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me and that unnecessarily generous introduction, although I will be taking that straight into the leadership meeting that I'm going to following this recording.
Yeah, my first question is, Manish, how much do you pay this guy and shouldn't you double it? Manish is online today talking about hitting $5 billion in assets. You were at like under 200 million, 9 years ago?
Oh, less than that. 7 years ago, we were at 140 million.
And since you've joined, you've gone from 140 million to 5 billion in 7 years.
In 7 years. It's been incredible. I was employee 5 when I joined the firm. And as of today, we have 9 people in marketing with 4 open positions. So it has been quite the journey.
So about 50-ish employees?
Yeah, we just crossed 50. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so 50 employees and nearly a quarter of that, fully a quarter of that in marketing once you're fully staffed there.
Yeah.
Pretty atypical for the industry, isn't it?
It is very atypical for the industry, and as is our approach, because I think in most organizations like ours in this industry, sales came first, and marketing came along as a sales support mechanism to create assets and hopefully do a little bit of lead generation. We did it the opposite way. We started with marketing, focused entirely on brand building, and then as we grew, added a sales team to provide boots on the ground in select regions across the country so that we had people that could go into an office. But marketing still is not a sales support mechanism. We, of course, work with them, but it's a very different kind of setup than what you would typically find, and intentionally so.
Okay, so talk to me about what you all got right, what you saw, and what the industry gets wrong when they think about brand building and marketing as sort of soft and sales as more real.
So we talk about this a lot because primarily 98% of everything that we've done on the marketing side has all been top of the funnel brand building. And so often you see people only doing middle of funnel, bottom of the funnel types of things because they want to get meetings booked and they want to get this, that, and the other thing. And they're not doing anything to grow the wider recognition and understanding of their brand. And we knew that if we started with the brand building piece of it, if we just from early days punched above our weight and got more people familiar with the Potomac brand than had any business knowing who a $140 million firm was, that would continue to pay dividends over time as we got our products out there and available on more platforms. And that's exactly what has happened. And now we have become this recognizable entity that is probably still much bigger than a $5 billion firm, and do everything we can to get our brand in front of as many people as possible.
Yeah, incredible. Anytime I've heard top of the funnel talked about in the industry, it's been with a wave of the hand and a very dismissive kind of like, but that's, that's top of the funnel. And you all, the proof is in the assets under management. That's incredible. So we're going to help you write your book now. Manish is writing a book. I saw this.
He is. Yeah.
We're going to help you write your book. I don't want to talk about tactics yet. I want to talk about principles. If you had to distill your ethos down to just 2 or 3 principles when it comes to the way that you've built the marketing infrastructure and the brand there, and perhaps how you'd suggest advisors do it.
So we're big Gary Vee fans here. And speaking of Manish, he recently sent me a podcast of his where Gary Vee said very emphatically, the most important thing in your business, top 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I don't care what industry you're in, the top 5 most important things in your business is your brand. Your story is your differentiator, and that is it. And I think that is more true for financial advisors and investment strategists like Potomac than probably any business that I can think of, because for advisors, all of the things that used to be differentiators have all become commoditized. Everybody has access to the same investment vehicles. Everybody has access to the same kind of technology. You're not going to win on those things. But for a business that has always been, and I believe no matter how many times we get scared into the robo-advisor and the AI advisor is coming, this is a personal relationship business. And I don't understand how so many people miss that because this is a personal relationship business, they're not leading with their personal relationships. They want to talk about investments and products and strategies and technology and all the things that really don't matter, and they don't lean into the one thing that sets them apart from everybody else, which is that you are you. You are not your competitor. And that is everything, and it's frankly where I think everybody has the opportunity to win. So that is the whole principle, philosophy, and tactic rolled into one neat little capsule. We're not the only tactical investment shop out there. I think we're pretty good at what we do, and I'll leave it at that for compliance reasons, but we're really good at what we do. But I guarantee you that, and I did use that word, we're probably better known than 9 out of 10 other investment shops because we've gotten our story out there consistently, repeatedly, and on every platform I can find to put it on.
So you're dropping incredible knowledge here, right? People are loath to admit this. We work in one of the most commoditized industries on the face of the earth. I mean, there's more ETFs now than individual stocks. And this business can pay very well, and it's sort of asset light to get off the ground. And so, of course, a lot of people are attracted to it. But the narrative for the, however, 15 plus years that I've been in the industry has been asset management is dead. Tactical management is extra, extra dead. And, why bother? It's all Vanguard all the time, all fee compression all the time. That world is over. And part of the reason I love the Potomac story is because you're proving all of that wrong. And you've done it in sort of, I'm sure it hasn't been simple from where you sit, but from the outside looking in, it's just sort of brilliantly simple, and you are who you are. Now, this is audio, so my listeners are missing out on the beautiful scene before me, but Potomac, you dress up. You're sitting here in a very nice suit and a tie. It looks like a jazz club behind you. Everything about the brand story, it runs through the way that the employees present themselves, the way the employees show up, the way the office looks, the way you communicate. That brand story is a thread that's woven through every part of how y'all show up. And I really love that you are living that, what a lot of people only give lip service to.
We are fiercely protective of it and incredibly proud of it at the same time. And everybody that we add to the team, we want them to add to that story and help us tell it. Mm-hmm. So that comes all the way into the interview process of talking about why we are like this, why we chose this path. And if that's not your particular brand of lifestyle, that's cool. There's other places out there that you can work, but this is who we are, and this is who we're going to be, and we want to find people to run with us that can follow that same mentality. And so far, that's worked well for us.
So we have a shared friend in Stacy Havener who talks a lot. Wonderful, right? One of the best.
She is one of the best.
And, she talks a lot, and I think a lot of other smart people in the world of branding and storytelling talk a lot about the need to attract as well as repel people. Like your brand, your employer brand, your corporate brand should really be sort of repellent to a certain type of potential employee or a certain type of client or partner. How do you think about having that brand that both attracts and repels?
I think that is where people have an opportunity to lean into what makes them unique. So I'll tell you a story of an advisor that I was talking to one time. And he was telling me, he's like, I get all the things that you're about and what you say, but I don't really know what the unique part of my story is. I'm just kind of a dorky guy that likes finance, and that's why I got into this. And I don't really know what to say other than if you're also a dorky guy that likes finance but didn't go into it, I guess, work with me. And I was like, okay, I see where you're going. I was like, what do you do in your free time? What's a hobby or a passion of yours? And he was like, well, my wife and I are really into wine. We love going wine tasting. We like trying different varietals. We like traveling to different parts of the world and trying different kind of wines. It's just something we're really into. I was like, cool, do that. And he's like, well, what do you mean? And I was like, okay, you want to do an event, right, where you're attracting new people. Have a wine tasting event at your office. Let people see that passion of yours come to life. And he immediately pushes back. And he's like, well, I don't know. Like, what if people don't drink and they don't want to work with me then because they think I'm a wine guy? And I'm like, but you are. And if somebody chooses that as their reason not to work with you, that's okay. You have permission for not everybody to want to work with you. The answer of who do I want my audience to be, everybody, is not going to help you build the kind of business that you want. Attract people with a shared passion. Use it as a way to start the conversation and then get into what you do. And he did it, and it worked great for him. And that's a very hyper-specific example, but I have seen people do these kinds of things in the past that have worked wonders. One guy was really into volunteering, so he organized a Habitat for Humanity thing, and that basically became their story. He was like the Habitat for Humanity guy. There was another guy who was really into document security, so he literally started doing a paper shredding event at his office where you could come and they had a truck and you could shred it doesn't matter what it is. If it's something that you're passionate about, it can be a great way to build a unique story and build a brand on it.
Look, Christopher's into classic cars, but if your thing is document security, don't let that stop you from
Exactly.
Don't let that stop you from building a beautiful story. No, I really think that's true. Some of the most successful, and I'm using that term as broadly as possible, like both financially successful and just happy advisors I know. I think about one in Colorado whose whole practice was built around serving the yoga community, both practitioners of yoga, and yoga teachers and things. And you're like, well, that's that's so narrow. But no, there's lots of yoga enthusiasts, and you get to work with like-minded, wonderful people who are very zen, very calm when markets are choppy. One advisor I knew, his dad was a firefighter, and they had financial struggles as a kid, and he served exclusively first responders. He would get high-dollar potential clients who would want to work with him, and he would not work with them if that was his mission, that was his story. And it means saying no to some business, but it also means if you're a firefighter and you're looking for an advisor, do you go with this guy or brand X? I mean, are you kidding me? Yeah. So
Exactly.
look for that passion. Any tips and tricks on taking that personal passion and sort of transforming it into something compelling the way that you've done with cars in your videos?
The top recommendation is go for it. So
Yeah.
that show, I had that idea for years, and I just sort of sat on it because I didn't know if it was as good of an idea as I thought it was, or it was just something that I selfishly really wanted to do. So I literally sat on that idea for about 2 years. And the only reason it finally came out was we were hosting our annual conference. And it was the first year we turned it into like a big event where it went from kind of a small meeting to more of like a conference. And I had decided not to speak. It's a passion of mine, but I had so much to do to produce that event. I was like, let's not add that on top of it. And 48 hours before the event, our day 2 keynote speaker had to drop out due to illness. And Manisha's response was, that's fine, Christopher can do it. And I was like, okay. And I had, 2 days, the 2 days leading up to the event to figure out what I was going to speak on stage about for 45 minutes. And what I came to was, in my entire career, 15 years of which was spent in the agency world doing a lot of video production, I had never been able to crack videos about advisors. They were just all so boring. Some a little better than others, depending on personality, but just, sitting there talking about being a fiduciary and things that most people don't really understand or care about. That's not why they came to your website, to check you out, to listen to you to drone on for 30 minutes. And so I looked outside the industry and I said, how do other people solve for this? And the direct correlation, comedians in cars getting coffee, or even diners, drive-ins, and dives, those are interview shows. That's one comedian talking to another comedian, a cook talking to another cook, but they dress it up in really interesting visual things. It's not a show about cars. It's a show about a comedian talking about the life of a comedian and what that really looks like and the challenges and struggles that you go through. And I said, that's what I want to hear from an advisor. I don't want to hear about, business tactics. I want to hear about who you are as a person, because we're getting back to this relationship bit, right? So that's what we did. And my passion is just sort of the thing that kicks it off and creates a hook and gets people to tune in. And then by the time you get to the story, you don't even realize what you've signed up for. And I think that is something that anyone can repeat. Take that hobby or passion of yours and find out how to make it a hook for creating content. Because if you're going to build a brand, you have to create content. And I see advisor after advisor after advisor give up on that. They'll do it a couple times. Maybe they'll come into a studio and they'll record, but then they don't do anything with it, or they start a podcast and they do 3 episodes because they want immediate results. And it doesn't work that way. We did our podcast for 3 years before we really started seeing any kind of meaningful metrics on what we do. And now I'll release an episode of Who Are You? And I'll have 150,000 people watch. And that's insane to me. I still can't believe it. But that's because for 3 years we had our nose to the grindstone and we just kept going.
So many threads I want to pull on there. I want to talk about the fear of creating content in a moment, but I think we're at a really critical inflection point here. And I'll tell a little story. I was at a farmer's market with my kid the other day, and we were walking around and we are going to some whatever vegetable booth or whatever. And I'm like, hey, let's go over here. And my 12-year-old son goes, I'm not going to a booth that uses AI slop. And they had, pictures of carrots or whatever that were like very clearly AI slop. Yeah. And then I watched something like Who Are You?, which is so gorgeously filmed and so organic and so human. And I think, maybe a bit of a hot take here, it's never been easier to be authentic. And in a day and age, when people are phoning it in en masse by using AI slop and AI writing and AI visuals, I think the people who give a damn and just take a minute to do it right, I think are going to be head and shoulders above the rest of the people with the M dashes and the bad, and the bad pictures.
I wholeheartedly agree. People
Yeah.
are craving real things right now. And I can't imagine the table being set better for an advisor. People are craving real. It's a relationship business. They want someone that they can connect with and find similarities in. It's there for the taking.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about advisors creating content now. One of the things, this is like Psych 100, is that people are poor descriptors of their own behavior. So if you and I were to go ask 100 advisors, hey guys, why are you not making content? We've got the answer they would give us, which I think would be, maybe I'm speaking for you here, but I think they would say, I'm really busy, or, something like that. But then they've got the real answer. So play armchair shrink for me and talk to me about the real answer. If the ostensible answer is I'm too busy, what's the real answer?
I'll choose my words carefully. I think there's a little bit of ego at play, because an advisor, to be successful, probably has a certain amount of charisma in which they can relate to people and have a conversation with them and connect. And this is hard when you're talking to a camera and not a person. You're not getting anything back. Mm-hmm. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is very rarely does it produce immediate results. I can have a seminar and most advisors know the math. It's like if I invite 40 people, I'll get 3 leads and 1 client. If I do a podcast, it doesn't work that way. Mm-hmm. And there is a long-term commitment that you have to make before you really start to see, as I described earlier, the fruits of building that brand. So you're talking to yourself or maybe someone else in your office, but you're not, the prospect isn't in front of you. Mm-hmm. You don't get immediate results. And putting out YouTube video after YouTube video or audio podcast after audio podcast and seeing 6 views, 7 views, 10 downloads, it's disheartening. Mm-hmm. And people give up. And they give up too easily.
Yeah. I'll second everything you just said. This is, I believe, year 7 of this podcast. And I started it, sort of on a whim. And then at some point, about 1.5 years or 2 years in, it got it went from unbelievably humble to unbelievably large pretty fast. Well, with a lot of consistency though, right? Like that.
Right.
At some point, there was just this hockey stick inflection point where it became a very different animal, but it took reps, right? I mean, it took 50 episodes or whatever the number was. A lot of people give up too quickly. I want to talk, when advisors are creating this content, there's the famous saying about pornography that in the Supreme Court that, I know it when I see it. What's the difference between pornography and art? It's a little bit hard to define, but I know it when I see it. And I feel that way a bit about authenticity, which is this, sort of grossly overused word. Everyone knows that it works, but it's almost like the harder you chase it, the less you have it. How do you think about building an authentic brand and encouraging an advisor to use their authentic voice without becoming, opaquely a tryhard?
I think it's a conscious decision to just always be yourself. I think the definition of who we are at Potomac has evolved over time, and that's okay because we've owned it at every step of the journey. We were famously work from home, t-shirts, pretty verbose and willing to use some colorful language. And now in a suit and tie, in a studio, but I'm still somewhat verbose and will use colorful language from time to time. We are who we are, and we've owned that along the way. We used to do a podcast called Industry Gossip, where we would sort of poke fun at news items that were happening in our industry. And we stopped doing it a couple of years ago, but when we opened this studio, we did one last episode, and every single topic were things that we had said that we've changed our mind on. So we was just calling ourselves out over and over again and talking about why our perspective on that has changed. And I think advisors too easily can just kind of fall into the trap of like, well, I'm putting my work hat on now, so I'm going to kind of hide that part of myself, or I'm just going to play this role, and they don't let their personality shine through. And you've just lost everything.
Yeah. Yeah, you yourself are the most unique thing about your business. In a world where there's 300,000 plus advisors who, despite what we might like to believe, 99% of them are very competent and do kind of the same stuff that you do. You're the only unique thing on offer.
And talk to that and expose it in your content and create something that's repeatable that you can keep talking about and have guests on that you can talk about those things. No one is going to watch your content for takes on the market. There's enough. There are cable channels dedicated to this. You're probably not going to launch a successful podcast because you got a slightly different view on, what happened in the S&P this week. But no one is you, and no one has your passions.
Yeah. And the other thing about the takes on the market angle, I mean, the best in the business their takes on the market are right 60% of the time. I mean,
Correct.
if you're brilliant. And so do you want to stand up your business on being vocally wrong half the time? I don't know. I think there's a better way. Okay. Last question for you. If an advisor is listening to this and, he or she has zero brand recognition, they're starting from scratch, what tactics, what would you tell them to do over the next couple of years? And what would you tell them to ignore? 2 or 3 things to do and, 1 or 2 things to ignore.
Pull to use canned content from a subscription service that is being used by hundreds of other advisors in your area sending out the exact same thing. It seems like an easy first step, but very little are you going to win from that. Tactics to employ. Start talking. Grab a camera. Doesn't have to be fancy. You don't need a big studio. Start recording. Start recording yourself talking about what's going on in the world, in your business, in your life. Start creating content. Maybe you don't post it all right away, but force yourself to start creating content. Get one of those little flexi arm things that you can put your iPhone on and just sit there and talk for a couple of minutes. Do it every single day. And if you get 2 or 3 clips that you feel like sharing, put those out and keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. Because what it's going to force you to do is talk about your story. And you will get better at defining it and how you want to talk about it and what kinds of things you like talking about. And you'll accidentally be creating a whole bunch of content along the way that you can use to build your business.
I love that. It's why I write books. People ask me why I write books because they pay so poorly. And it's so hard and pay so poorly. I mean, it's literally to know what I think. I mean, I write books to sharpen my thinking. That's why I do it. And the process of creating content sharpens your story, winnows that story, forms the brand. The brand is made in the telling of it. I love that. Christopher, your content is absolutely worth seeking out. So as we say goodbye here, tell us where people can learn more about Potomac and then also the different content that you all are sharing.
So after a very expensive bidding war on GoDaddy, Potomac.com is the easiest way to find us, which is fantastic. And if you're looking specifically for our content, if you search for Potomac Studios on YouTube, all of our shows are there in different feeds, and there's a fun watch or two to be had there.
No, there absolutely is. Christopher, thank you. What y'all have done is worth emulating. So thank you for sharing the playbook with us today.
Thank you so much for the time. It was great to see you.
Thanks for tuning in to Standard Deviations. If you can't wait till next week for more behavioral finance insights, visit www.orion.com. All opinions expressed by Dr. Daniel Crosby and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of or endorsement by Orion and its affiliates, subsidiaries, and employees. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for legal, tax, and investment decisions. The opinions are based upon information the participants consider reliable.